This is fun. We get to do this podcast thing together, me and you. You had this great idea. So for people who are listening, Kendra, you had this fantastic idea of doing a podcast about Strengthsfinder because I am a Gallup certified strengths coach and you've been finding it very interesting hearing about strengths.
And I have dreamt of doing a podcast with you for a long time.
That's right, because we're going to be good.
I don't know, but I just thought it would be fun to pretend. So it's our pretend podcast.
So welcome to our pretend podcast, whoever is listening. So the basic idea of what you thought was a good idea, and I agreed, was that we could talk about Strengthsfinder, kind of why I became a certified strengths coach, a brief explanation of that, what our experience has been with it, kind of hearing from you what your experience has been, kind of as someone who didn't go get certified as a coach for this, how it has affected our marriage, because this is kind of also to celebrate our 20th anniversary. We've been married 20 years. And it feels like that has just flown by. It's been a good 20 years. And it's maybe going to be interesting. I guess we'll see if it's going to be interesting to see if when we look back on our 20 years and talk about strengths, kind of even how this has helped us without us even realizing that it's been helping us over the last 20 years.
And then maybe in another 20 years, on our 40th anniversary, we can do our second pretend podcast.
That's right. We just call it the Pretend Podcast. People always come up with fancy names. That will be our fancy name. The Pretend Podcast.
Sounds good.
So just a little bit of a background on Strengthsfinder and why I became a strengths coach. Of course, you know this, but for people who are listening who don't know this, I first took the Strengthsfinder assessment. It was almost 12 years ago because it was when I took it when Kalia was not born, like I was gone from a master's degree. Mm-hmm. And I was at, and I can't remember if it was in my first course or not. So it may not have happened exactly when kind of I missed her birth, which is something that comes up often. Not from you. You don't. No. We knew that might happen. But it's something that I have thought about often that I missed Kalia's birth. So I'm sorry, Kalia. And so I took it the first time as a part of my master's degree and then took it. And then I brought it back to, at that time we were working at Red Oak Bible Camp. And then I did it with our team there, all the staff and spouses. And I really appreciated it back then. And I loved it. And so this last year, about just over a year ago, I was trying to decide with my business that I was launching, what I wanted to bring to that business. And I decided Strengthsfinder. To me, it was the best assessment that I'd come across. It seemed to impact people the most. It has a lot of very practical components to it. It's not a personality assessment. It's more of a performance and potential assessment. It's really a talent assessment is what it talks about. And since then, since I got certified, now I've been doing it for a year, almost exactly a year, and as an official capacity, as official coach. And it's been really fun. I've been enjoying it, and it's been interesting to see how people are embracing it. And I love seeing when their light switches come on and they're behind their eyes when I'm coaching them about how this can help them be better leaders and better teammates and just run things better. So that's kind of where we're at in the last year. But you've got some experience with Strengthsfinder too. Like you took it a while ago, but you also just took it recently again too. What's been your read on this? You're familiar with Myers-Briggs and DISC and Enneagram. Maybe briefly just mention kind of what you've appreciated about this assessment for yourself.
Well, I first took it, however many years ago that was, 11, 12 years ago. And when I took it for the first time, I had never taken any other assessments at that point. And when I took the Strengthsfinder assessment when we were living at camp, the thing that stands out to me the most is when I got my results and read over what my strengths were and what they meant. The thing that surprised me the most was that it hit on things that I just did that I thought were normal, either that everybody did or that was just who I was and I didn't realize that could be a strength. And sometimes it didn't feel like a strength. And it wasn't my list of strengths at that time. It felt like because I hadn't developed them intentionally, I just had no awareness. I just did them. It was just who I was. And so it was exciting for me to get the assessment and to read like, that's actually a unique thing about me. That's something that I bring that not everyone else can bring. And if I would develop these things, that's something that actually could be used to be helpful to other people. And I never realized I could do that. I just thought that was normal. So I liked the intentionality of it at the time. Back then, there wasn't really a ton of, I don't know if I'm correct in this, but there wasn't a lot of resources available.
That's right.
We had like a book and you had gone through it.
Yeah.
And so we talked about what we read in the book, but then it just kind of fell by the wayside because it wasn't in front of us. There wasn't a lot to work through. And then maybe about 5 years ago, I got very interested in other assessments and started doing a lot of personal development with Myers-Briggs and Enneagram and stuff. And so then last year, when you started talking about Strengthsfinder, I was interested because I love all that kind of stuff. But I didn't understand why it would be different or more helpful than the assessments I was already doing. So I started to dig into it more at that time. 11 years ago, you didn't really talk about this, that there are your top 5 strengths. Right.
Yeah, there's 34 possible themes in total. And when you take your report, you can get your full 34 in order, but most people just get to see their top 5 in order.
And do those normally change during your life?
So in general, the idea is that there shouldn't be drastic changes in it, but there will be some adjustments, especially when there's major change and transition in life. And that could be something like a death, a close death in the family. It could be something like marriage. Could be something like other big challenges. Could affect the results in the long run.
So I had taken my top 5 11 years ago. And then when you became a certified coach, then we talked about how I should do my full list. And so I did that recently, and I was not prepared for any changes. I thought I would just kind of flesh it out a little bit more. I'd find out more than just my top 5. But I had 3 out of my top 5 completely change. Well, not completely, but my top 5 are now different than they were. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that because it felt like a bit of an identity crisis. Sure. Because I'd been learning about my previous top 5 and now somehow they changed, whether it was from all the other work that I had done, personal development stuff in the past, or from life experiences or whatever. But this time when I took it, I felt like it just seemed to fit me even better. It felt more comfy, like when you put on sweatpants at the end of the day. Sure. And you're like, oh, this is such a relief. These fit so much better. So it felt like a comfortable, like, this is cheesy, but like coming home to myself. That sounds very dramatic, but it felt like reading on the page. I'm like, yes, this is who I am. This is what is most important to me. And I have changed, and these values and beliefs and whatever else have become most important to me. So I felt like it was a good reflection of that.
And we'll talk about which 5 you have, and we'll talk about mine as well. But just a couple things, because when you talked about kind of the unique or the talents that when you first went through, it's like, oh, these are things that I just always thought I did these. Like and that's basically what it is. Because really when you look at the Strengthsfinder assessment, really what it's identifying is your talents, right? So these are the talents that you have. They're natural, they're innate to you. They just come easily. It's kind of the things that you do every day without even realizing that you're doing them sometimes. And so for a lot of people, when they see their results, because it's talking about things that are just naturally and innate, a piece of them, they think, oh, how special is this, right? Everyone must be able to do things this way, or this must be something. But really, there is uniqueness for each person. And one of the things that I love talking about with people is that there's a 1 in 33 million chance that someone will have the exact same top 5 as you in the exact same order. So it's very unique because you're probably never going to come across someone who has that exact same ranking as you. And not only that, if you all of a sudden would find someone with that 1 in 33 million and you find someone else that has the same results, the way that you live it out, your expression of your talent themes is going to be very different for each person. And so there's so much nuance and depth that can be found in an individual going through this. And of course, I use it with teams as well. And it's really fascinating when you start seeing teams working through things, and if they have if they share one of the themes in their top 5, it might not be in the same spot. That doesn't really matter which spot it's in. And then hearing how they view it and how they, I guess, use it in their context, and it can be very different even in the same workplace for them as to what it works itself out to. So the idea behind it is that it's your talent times investment equals strength. So that's the formula that people can use. So it's not really just a talent. It's going to become a strength. It's called Strengthsfinder because it helps you find the strength that you can use. And the strength is being able to deliver, near perfect outcomes consistently based on the talents that you bring to the table. So it can apply to how you parent. It can apply to how you're married to someone. It can apply to your work. It can apply in a lot of different contexts. And because it's not just solely focused around behavior, it actually is designed to lend itself to beyond just this is my personality. It lends itself to almost any circumstance. How do my strengths show themselves and live themselves out in circumstance X, whatever X would be.
Right.
So yeah, just a few things around that with kind of how you shared about your experience with it. We should maybe just talk a little bit about what our top 5 are, maybe explain them a little bit for people who haven't taken this before, or they're going to be watching this or listening to this. These themes, you can find out more about these themes. Like if you're curious, you can just go to the Gallup website, Gallup with a UP, GALLUP, and there's resources there that are available.
This is where we need to say we're including the link in our show notes.
Okay, we're including the link in our show notes.
Our pretend show notes.
We're gonna have in our pretend show notes. So check the show notes out for the link. To find out more about which the themes are. But we're going to talk about the ones that we have. And we have one that we share. And the others are unique in our top 5. Mm-hmm. So how about you just list your 5, and then I can briefly explain each of them for people who are listening so they have a good idea.
Okay. I have empathy, individualization, restorative, belief, and developer.
Okay. So there's so much we could talk about when it comes to these themes because there's domains. We're not going to dig into that kind of stuff. We're just going to give a brief explanation as to what these themes are. Mm-hmm. And maybe in our future pretend podcast, we can dig into this deeper. If you're listening to this and you appreciate this and you want to hear more, send a message to Kendra or myself. Our email's in the show notes. Maybe we'll see. So people with empathy, they can sense other people's feelings by imagining themselves in their lives or in their situations. That's a very brief explanation of it. So very good at kind of reading what people are going through, how they're feeling, whether it's when you walk into a room and you can sense it from the group or just kind of getting it from individuals. Empathy. Individualization, the ability to recognize and identify what makes each person individually unique and how to best relate to each individual. So it's kind of the idea of if you had 4 different people that you were talking to in the course of a day, you'd be very good at understanding and recognizing what makes each person unique and how to relate to them in a way that will be effective. Restorative is a lot of what you do and how you're going to go get things done is because you have this natural ability to see how to fix things, fix situations, fix people. I mean, that sounds... You're going to fix people. It's not really... It sounds harsher than it is.
Like help people out of difficult situations.
Help people, yes. Fixing is the wrong word. So this idea to kind of restore it to where it could be. So brokenness into being something that's restored. Belief. The idea that for belief is that because of your inherent core values and the things that you believe deep down inside, that's going to drive a lot of what you do and why you do it. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to go and do something that you don't believe in. And so when you stop very specifically at a stop sign, even if there was no one else alive in the world, that might be because of your belief.
So the fact that sometimes you don't really stop at a stop sign, what does that say about your belief?
Yeah, so we both have belief through in our top 5. And but like I said, belief lives itself out differently for each person. Okay. I was just sharing a slightly different example.
Okay.
And then developer is your number 5. So basically recognizing and building the potential in others around you. So recognizing that there's ways that you can help others go from where they are to where they could be, and even just signs of small improvement. You appreciate that. You like to be a part of that and like to build into others, and you do that well. That's just your natural talent. So that's your top 5. And so my top 5 are different. I do share one, but I have strategic, belief, self-assurance, ideation, and futuristic. And so the strategic, basically the ability to find the path between where we are to where we want to be and find alternate ways to kind of get there. So being able to explore all the different possibilities on how to get to an outcome that we want to get to and find the one that works best, in my opinion. Belief, have that one as well. That's my number 2. So we've talked about that one already. Self-assurance, basically someone with self-assurance has this confidence to take risks and manage their own lives. So new things, challenges, risks doesn't necessarily stress them out because they can handle anything. Whoever they might be. Ideation is, people with ideation are fascinated with new ideas. I mean, that one might be the most easy way to explain just on its own. And they like coming up with new ideas. They're able to come up with new ideas. And then futuristic, people with futuristic are inspired by what the future could be, and they help energize others because of how they talk about the future and what it could be. So that's my top 5. Now there's 34 possible themes. So if people are taking this assessment, they could get a mix of any of those 34. There's going to be some that are more likely, some that are less likely based on just statistics and which ones seem to show up most often. But that's the results. So when you think of your top 5 and kind of our marriage and my top 5, I'm always interested in your perspective on these kind of things. So how have you kind of seen these in our marriage? How have they helped us, from your perspective, be pretty successful, in our marriage?
Successful in our marriage?
Yeah.
Well, I think it helps that we both like exploring new ideas. Like, I like exploring, how can we fix this? How can we change it moving forward? How can we develop new things? And so it makes it fun to talk about things we want to try. Or since you've started your new business, it's like, we enjoy talking about similar things. We come at it from different angles.
Yeah.
You tend to be more big picture, and I tend to be more like all the details. So sometimes my stress level will kind of get a little bit heightened because I start thinking about all the details and all the stuff it's going to take to make your ideas happen.
Right.
So we've kind of had to navigate that a little bit. But other than that, I feel like we both love talking about the same kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I feel like even though we both have belief and that can play out differently in different people, I feel like for the most part, our beliefs are very similar and compatible. And so because we both believe strongly, like mostly the same things, I think that's also been really great for our relationship because we have passions in a lot of the same areas. So that makes it fun to explore stuff together.
Yeah. Well, and if you think of we've experienced a lot of different things in our lives. Like we've been, youth pastor couple. We've been at Red Rock Bible Camp. We've ran a business a couple times. We've been involved in fundraising and nonprofits. And one of the things that I think has been a really neat thing about all of that, and I mean, I'm sure everyone who's married talks lots about things, but I feel like there's always this, partly because of the types of roles we've had, where it's been in many ways very joint, like youth pastor and Red Rock, where our belief has helped us to have these. We've been able to live that out together very easily in lots of ways. And then even I think over time when we've done things where it's been a little bit less us together, where it's been a little bit more me like going off to work and being in a work office for a little while, we've still been able to kind of always talk about, and it ties into some of those other things too, like seeing the future, right? I mean, talking about the future, talking about what could be, and you've always been very good at helping me process, hey, how can whatever I'm doing be taken to that next level? And that's some of that restorative, some of that developer too. I mean, developers often on the one-on-one side of things, but just that way that you have that interest. And so we've always had good stuff to talk about no matter where I've been working.
And I feel like what's been very helpful for me is I can get bogged down in all the details and get discouraged if I don't see change happening, or I get worried about how things are going to work out in the future because I just get too focused on all the little things. Your big picture ability to like see how things are going to work out, see how we're going to get to that point in the future has helped me get unstuck many times. Right. And sometimes when I felt very discouraged, I just can say to you, can you please tell me nice, positive words about how this is all going to work out? And I kind of feed off of your enthusiasm, your confidence, and your self-assurance that things will work out well in the future, even if I can't see it in the same way that you can.
So we should maybe talk a little bit about I'm not sure how this will go. We'll see. Love, envy. Should we add crazy in? I don't know.
I think we kind of talked. Maybe we touched touched on it a bit. I don't know.
Okay. There's one exercise that can be done with StrengthsFinder that talks about what do you love about other people's themes. You can talk about your own themes that way too, but and so maybe we should talk about those because this is kind of about our marriage. What do we love about the other person's themes? Mm-hmm. What do we envy? And what drives us crazy? Let's do love and envy, and then we'll see.
Now I'm curious. Maybe we should start with crazy so that we end on a more positive
Nothing drives me crazy about your themes. Nothing.
Good. That's why this has worked so well for 20 years.
So, but we can start with crazy. How about you? You start.
Well, I think that I already talked about. Like, I get a little stressed out with all the details that are running through my mind because you'll have this big idea. And I feel like sometimes you come up with ideas not because you have any plans on actually doing it. Like maybe, but maybe not. Like you just come up with ideas because it's fun to come up with ideas.
They're always really good ideas, though.
They're just outrageously fantastic ideas. And I think the most memorable time, like we were fairly newly married. It was in the first year or two of marriage. And we were coming home from a Christmas gathering. So the introvert in me was like just ready for being at home and everything quiet and no people around me because I needed to recharge quite badly. So we're driving home and I'm just done with everything. And you start, I don't know how it came up, but you started planning how you were someday going to film a meat commercial. And like, I don't even know how you would get to
it was such a good commercial.
The desire to come. It was just a commercial. You dreamed up in your head about how you're going to do this meat commercial.
Fantastic.
And you described it like very thoroughly. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I just felt like I could cry or go crazy or rip my hair out because my brain was so tired, but I can't even stop myself. I just immediately start thinking, how are we going to make this happen? I'm like, we're not going to make this happen. I don't want to make this happen. I don't want to think about how this is going to happen. So it was a good chance to talk about, like, there are times when, although your meat commercial ideas and all other ideas are fantastic, sometimes I'm just too tired. So can we please talk about this in the morning? And it was good. Like, I feel like that was a good building block for more peace in our relationship because I felt like in the future I could be honest and just say, I'm full of ideas for now.
Right.
We'll get back to that later.
Well, if any people in advertising are listening to this, just please reach out. It's a very good idea. It's still stuck with us over 19 years since the idea. So, I mean, from a crazy perspective, I mean, it can be one of the things that, because I don't have empathy very high at all in my list of 34, and I think it's number 27 on my list. So like so I think for me it's can be challenging and maybe drive me crazy sometimes, even with the empathy that you can show very easily for everyone, including our kids. Sometimes it's like we don't need empathy right now in my mind. And so I think that's been an interesting thing that there's been huge value from that, of course, too, that I've really appreciated as well, because I think that people that have empathy so low, like me, really find value from those that do have it, especially when it comes to children. And there are times when you help guide me along carefully that those emotions are there. And
it kind of seems like, this could be wrong, but I get the impression sometimes that you just don't feel like it's the time for empathy. I want to use empathy all the time. And you're like, we don't need empathy in this.
Yeah. So sometimes that's probably accurate to how I would view that. Yes. That doesn't mean that it's the wrong time to do it. Just from my perspective, I don't see it that way. Okay. So let's go, just keep cruising on things. Let's do envy and then love. We'll do it like in that order.
It's good. Good idea.
So what about envy? So what do you envy? What do you envy about me?
I just stir up strife and conflict.
Because we obviously want to envy things in our lives. Such a good human condition to have envy. The idea isn't envy. Maybe it's like if there's, I mean, it kind of is, but if there's a piece that you kind of wish that you had, and it doesn't necessarily need to be out of my list, it can be out of anywhere on the 34. But what do you kind of, did you wish it? I thought I should have had more of that, or I wish I would have had more of that, because that seems really neat.
Self-assurance would be the one that I wish I had more of, for two reasons. I feel like the self-assurance that you have enables you to use your other strengths better because you have confidence to step into situations, whereas I often hold back. Even though I know I have strengths that could be helpful, I just tend to hold back because I don't have the self-assurance to insert myself in the same way that you do.
Sure.
But the second reason I envy it is because you just know that you are going to be able to handle stuff that comes at you. And so just a few weeks ago, we were talking about this, and it was one of those times where I just like had this moment of realizing how different our mindset is. And I wish I had your mindset, because we were talking about something that was stressing me out about the future. And you were just totally calm. And I'm like, why are you not stressed about that? And you said, because I just know that whatever happens, we'll be able to work it out. Like, I don't have any doubt in my mind. We'll be fine. Everything will work out. And I realized that a lot of the source of stress in my life comes from the fact that I don't actually believe that. I always worry, what are we going to do? Am I going to be able to make it through this really hard situation? I try to imagine how I'm going to face it. And sometimes I can't see a way through. And I think that a lot of stress in my life would be eliminated if I could just have the mindset that it'll be fine. We'll figure it out and we'll be great.
Self-assurance, on a side note, only 5% of people in the world have it in their top 5, roughly.
That's the other thing I envy. You have more rare themes than I do, and I want to be all rare and special, and like mine are more common.
All themes are neutral. I don't win a prize for having self-assurance. It is the least common theme that people have, but I don't win a prize for that. So for me, I think I'm going to talk about empathy again, because I think that it makes you a better parent. It makes you a better parent in different situations than me. And I think that there's times where your empathy, I wish I would have more of that empathy so that I could be a better parent at different times. So that's where that empathy shines through.
You are a very good parent.
Well, just in different ways. And I think empathy is as a parent, like empathy lives itself out in ways that I think can make a really unique and special bond with children. And I mean, I have a different way of connecting with them, and that's fine. But if there was a piece that I could add from what you do, I think that would be one of them.
You're the fun parent, though, so
maybe.
If they have problems that they need to talk through, they come to me, and if they want to have fun, they go to you.
Yeah.
I can't argue with
I can't argue with that. It's true. What about love? I mean, envy and love might be very similar, but I mean, it could be a different theme on the list too. It wouldn't need to be the one that I have. I can talk about yours first. So I love your restorative side of things, because I mean, there's times where maybe it's like, stop trying to restore me right now. But in general, I really appreciate that, because you have this. I just love that you're able to view a challenge or something that's not working and find a solution to make it work, and you enjoy that. And so I love that. I love that has been a piece of lots of things that we've done in our marriage. So whether it's working on a committee together, or planning an event together, or something like that, and you're able to kind of help fix something that wasn't working, or that hadn't worked in the past, or something like that. I think that's a really key part of our marriage, but also like just things that we've done together. I mean, I'm not sure if I look at it and say that you've necessarily fixed our marriage at different times, or like, I think we have a pretty good marriage, but I mean, I think that I've seen it in other ways, and I've just really loved seeing that in action.
Oh, that's very nice. I find it hard to pick just one that I love, because I feel like your top 5 kind of all work together to become the thing that I love most about you. And I think it's your energy and your attitude and your sense of humor and your like the way that you can come into difficult situations and make them lighter and make me laugh. And I think it's because of those things, like because you just have such I know that in Proverbs they talk about a woman, like she can laugh at the days to come, right. But I feel like you're like the Proverbs 31 woman. You can laugh at the days to come. And I feel like all the energy that you have and the force to move things forward and to get the whole family unstuck and to get me out of my funk and all of that. Like, I don't know if that's just one of your themes. It's kind of all of your themes working together just to make up who you are and to give you the energy that you have. And I see that all the time. It's not just me or our family that benefits from that, but like anytime you've come into situations where, let's say, people know me, but they're meeting you for the first time. I've heard over and over again, your husband just has such an amazing energy. And it's not just a one-time thing. Like, this has been repeatedly throughout our marriage. People just always talk about your energy. And so I feel like when you've been gone all day and you come home, the energy in our home just shifts, and you just bring this joyful lightness to our home. And so that is is that cheating if I say that it's
no,
like
it's not
all
cheating.
five together?
You can say that.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, I mean, this podcast just ended up being us talking about how amazing we are and each other are.
Well, at least we're not just talking about how amazing like we ourselves, we're talking about each other. So it's not quite as boastful as if we just were talking about ourselves personally.
Although it does point to one of the other reasons why I really appreciate the Strengthsfinder assessment. Okay, I'm calling it Strengthsfinder. It's really called CliftonStrengths. They rebranded it to calling it CliftonStrengths. I don't like it called CliftonStrengths. I'm putting that out there. I tell people that all the time. Strengthsfinder is what it was called originally. That just flows off the tongue better than CliftonStrengths. It's called CliftonStrengths now because the guy who founded it, Donald Clifton, great guy, great ideas, great research around all this, but I wish it was just called Strengthsfinder. Anyway, one of the other reasons why I really like this assessment tool is that it really focuses on strengths, and that's fun. That's good. That's positive. It feels good to talk about what we're good at, what we are naturally, the innate talent we bring out, and how we can use it. In a workplace context. When I use this in a workplace context, it doesn't hurt to talk about this kind of stuff. I mean, we don't ignore weaknesses. Like we do talk about weaknesses, but it's focused around a lot of how do you do what you do best, better every day.
Yeah.
And that's fun for people to talk about. And when you integrate this into, regular, whether it's in a family or in a workplace, when you integrate that kind of concept into your culture, that just changes the feel because it's like, let's talk about what you're good at.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other reasons why I really like this. So we're going to wrap things up shortly, but one of the things, if you've made it this long in the podcast, we have a special offer. So Cantera Leadership, so that's my company. We didn't say that at the beginning, so I call it Cantera Leadership. What I'm willing to do, and this is a unique, exclusive, I don't do this, I won't ever do this again to other people. Well, maybe I'll do this again.
Don't say never do it again.
So maybe I'll do it again, but what I'm trying to get across is that this is very rare. It's a very rare offer. So normally when I do coaching sessions, normally it's either one-on-one or with a team, and then I work with the team and stuff like that. I rarely do it with just like two people, for example. But because of our 20th anniversary, this is like my 1 year work launch anniversary. If anyone's listening to this and they're a couple, married, not married, whatever, it doesn't matter, but they're interested in wanting to dig through this as a couple, like normally I wouldn't even do this, so I don't even know what my normal price would be, but this is like a crazy discounted rate anyway, because even if I do this just one-on-one with someone, I almost never meet one-on-one just for one session because you cannot really cover enough in one session. But I have a one session going through your strengths for couples deal. So for 140 Canadian dollars. This is Canadian dollars. Like I'm almost like paying you to do this with me at this rate. It's going to give you access to 2 assessments. Now, just your top 5 report. You won't see your full 34. You can upgrade to the full 34 if you really want to, but there's so much meat in the top 5 that I think that'd be enough. And you get 1 hour with me on a Zoom call to go over the results with you and talk about some of the things that Kendra and I just talked about, and you can see what your strengths are and how it affects what's made your relationship successful. So $140 Canadian, one session. There may even be a link in the show notes that you can click to book something for it already and pay it all online and just be ready to go.
It's a good date idea. Yeah,
it's a good date idea. Hop on Zoom, chat with me.
Because you want Ben on your date. Yeah. He has great energy.
Have great energy. I'm not sure if it comes through over Zoom, but maybe it does. And also, if you're listening and you made it this far and you thought, hey, this is kind of okay, listen to this podcast, and I'd be okay with listening to more.
More pretend podcasts?
More pretend podcasts. Let us know. We've talked about maybe doing another one that digs a little deeper into some of this kind of stuff. Maybe on Valentine's Day, or maybe we'll do it more regularly than that. We'll see how it goes, but that's kind of the way it is. Any closing thoughts?
None come to mind.
Okay. So that's a brief little kind of tie into StrengthsFinder. That's a little bit about our marriage and kind of how we tie StrengthsFinder into that. But a little bit about who we are. Hope you appreciated it. Stay tuned for more pretend podcasts in the future.
You do outtakes at the end. My favorite podcast does that, and then she does singing impressions. Do your Victor voice.
Victor. What are your strengths that you bring to this marriage? Victor has lots of strengths. Victor, very strong.
What are you doing?
I just took that off the screen because it had the recording on, and maybe is that a good thing in the background of a podcast?
I don't know.
Like this? Like
I don't know. It's just distracted me that you turned it off.
Anyway, let's just start.
Do I have to be professional?
No.
Somewhat?
I mean, no.